Hello and welcome to Assurance by David Barr Development. This video is going to be a high-level overview of what problems Assurance solves, who it's for, high level, how does it work, and things like that. First off, what are the problems Assurance solves? Well, the problem is that NetSuite partners have limited testing resources, and this results in bugs, delays, and tech debt. Let's dive deeper into each one of these individually. Bugs normally happen when you have a feature released and working in the wild that customers love, and when you try to add a new feature to supplement it, you break what was working in the first place. This, of course, is costly for your organization. It costs you customer support resources to understand the problem, it pulls your development resources away from working on the next big thing to fix the bug, and in a worst case scenario, if you have too many bugs, customers will churn. If you take lessons from releasing bugs, you may take the opposite approach and test all workflows for every ticket. This will take a lot of time, resulting in lower velocity and being slow to market, potentially allowing competitors to release before you. Whichever way you go, testing less and releasing bugs, or testing more and releasing slow, you're going to end up with tech debt. And this is because developers will learn it's better to release the smallest change that touches as few things as possible so as to not break anything, instead of making the best change that will set you up for quick changes in the future. It's a short-sighted bargain that pays off in the short term, but makes it harder to make changes in the future, resulting in further bugs and delays. Similarly, most organizations have some legacy 1.0 code that they keep saying they'll refactor when they have time for it, but somehow the can is always kicked further down the road. This is because there's a huge testing effort to rewrite, because you have to make sure that every workflow still works. And the older the legacy code, the more workflows that is. What we want to do is shrink that testing effort to give you more courage to tackle these big, hairy projects. So what solutions exist for this today? Well, there are a few options, each with their strengths, but none that do everything well. You can hire full-time QA staff, but adding headcount is always expensive, and a person can only test one thing at one time in one account. So if 3 developers all finish up changes at the same time, and each change needs to be tested into accounts with different features turned on, you've already hit a bottleneck. You can use unit tests, which are fast and free, but in SuiteScript development, most of what we do is called NetSuite APIs, so you end up mocking a ton of responses, which is hard to do perfectly all the time, and so these have limited upside. Finally, some organizations will even invest in hiring an SDET to create automated tests through WebDrivers, which again adds a lot of cost through headcount, but these take a long time to run and are fragile to small changes that NetSuite can make. Ideally, we want something affordable, quick and easy for developers to write themselves, and that actually test inside of NetSuite using real data. So why is now the right time to tackle automated testing in NetSuite? Well, NetSuite is a bit behind the times here. Here are 2 famous books advocating for a test-driven approach to development, and as you can see, these both came out over a decade ago. Most of the big tech companies that you think of invest heavily in automated testing and have closely monitored metrics on the percentage of their code bases covered by automated testing. So as the NetSuite ecosystem has grown dramatically in the last few years, it's time to get modern tooling into NetSuite. So how does Assurance work? Well, what we want to do is take the same steps that a manual QA person would take and put that into a NetSuite custom record. This approach has a couple advantages. One, it lets us replay the test on demand at any time from a variety of places, and 2, it's a pattern familiar to your staff who already work in NetSuite every day without having to learn a whole new technology. So in this example, our manual QA script had 4 steps: create an order, fulfill it, run a script, then make sure that the invoice was created. As you can see, each of these steps corresponds to a line on our test. We can drill into each of these lines to get a closer look. This first step has a type of setup data, and I'm telling Assurance that I want to make a sales order with these values: a customer entity with ID 3, a specific item, and a specific amount. Similarly here, I'm creating my fulfillment. Here, I'm telling Assurance to run my script, specified by the script ID and deployment ID. And finally, I'm evaluating the result to make sure that my order has the status of build. If it does, then the test will pass. If it has any status other than build, then it will fail. Now that our developer has written their test, it's time to run it. As a developer myself, I like to run tests directly from my code editor so that I don't have to flip back and forth between it and the NetSuite UI, so Assurance lets you do that. Here we can see that this test is passing, and I get some details on what happened during each step, including the IDs of the records created, so I can see exactly what happened. Of course, if you prefer to use the UI, you can run the test there as well. This is also a good option for business analysts and other non-technical staff to run tests to generate examples at the click of a button. Whichever way you do it, another custom record called a run will be created that stores the details we saw before, whether it's a success or a failure, and summaries for each step. After we have our test passing, it's time to make sure our recent changes haven't broken any related functionality, and we use Assurance's tagging system for this. In this example, I tagged my invoicing test with order flow, so I can run all my order flow tests together. I also tagged it with the script that I made the updates in, so that I can make sure that any other test that relies on this file passes as well. Each test may take a minute or two to run, so if you have 100 tests, it's important to be able to target the exact subset of tests you care about. And as you can see here, tags also exist in a hierarchy, so you can run groups at the level of granularity that you care about. In this example, I can run tests related to PLM item creation, or I could go up a level to all PLM item tests, further up, all tests related to items, or of course, our full test bed. And as you would expect, this creates a group run record that has all the statistics you need, such as which tests passed and which failed. Now that our developer has verified their change works without breaking any related functionality, it's time for PR approval. Assurance represents tests as JSON instead of NetSuite's typical XML because it's easier as a PR reviewer to see what test scenarios are covered and flag any missing scenarios. This JSON will be included in the PR with the other code changes so they can all be reviewed and deployed together. Once this is in our QA environment, we can run the full test bed to make sure everything still works as expected beyond the subset we checked earlier. Additionally, you can add an automated check into your deployment pipeline to guarantee that certain tests are run before code is released. And lastly, once our code is deployed, I still recommend scheduling a nightly run of your full test bed. This is a nice peace of mind measure so that every morning when you log into work, you know everything still works. That wraps up our how it works portion of this video. So now we can look back at the problems we talked about at the beginning and see how Assurance addresses them. If we had a bug in our example, we probably would have caught it in the development stage, if not in our QA environment during our full testbed run. In terms of delays, we save time by drastically reducing the amount of manual QA work we need to do, and for any manual testing that we do decide to do, we increase the likelihood that it passes on the first round of testing without requiring any time-consuming back and forth. And then Assurance also empowers us to do small-scale refactoring without fear of breaking something unexpected or increasing the testing effort required. Over time, this will help us steadily pay down and prevent tech debt. Now, if this sounds exciting, you may be wondering how much it costs. I can't quote a price in this video because it depends on factors like how many accounts you want to install it in, but for most customers, this will be a fraction of the cost to hire a full-time QA person. With that in mind, we can see how it stacks up to the solutions we saw before. Compared to a QA person, we save money and have more effective testing because we're able to test our entire code base every night in a way that manual work will never be able to scale to. Compared to unit tests, we're also much more effective because we're actually creating the transactions in NetSuite rather than just mocking what we expect them to send back. And finally, compared to WebDriver solutions, Assurance is much more affordable and lets us quickly and easily group tests so we can use them throughout the day and during the development stage rather than doing one massive bulk run overnight only. If you're ready to take the next step, I would encourage you to go ahead and install our public suite bundle. It will allow you to create up to 30 tests in an environment without any additional licensing. Reach out to me and I'd be happy to set you up with a training session with your development team on how to write Assurance tests. If you're able to provide me with access to your account, I'd be happy to write your first tests for you because often with a new tool, it's easier to copy from a template than make something new from scratch. During this time, I would encourage you to commit to writing tests for each ticket for 1 or 2 sprints, and at that point, you can judge for yourself with confidence whether this is the right tool for your team. If so, that's fantastic. You just found a new tool that you're certain will help you move quickly and confidently without fear of bugs. But if you decide it's not for you, that's fine too. No harm, no foul. You haven't paid anything, and you're not stuck in a contract paying for a tool that doesn't help you. To close, I'll tell you a little about myself. I started my NetSuite career working at RF Smart, a NetSuite partner that makes a very popular WMS product. More recently, I've been working at Peloton, a large NetSuite client. And between these two opportunities, I've seen firsthand the challenges that come with scaling a large quantity of NetSuite customizations. I noticed the need to quickly and easily test code automatically, and that's what led me to make Assurance. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn about Assurance, and if you have any questions, thoughts, or are interested, please don't hesitate to reach out.